One Punch Man might be one of the best stories there is about a hero who can defeat any villain with one punch. But the story of his rise to global popularity might be even better. It all starts in Niigata, Japan, where we meet our first character, One. Although much is not known about his personal life, we do know that he was born in Saitama, and one day when he was in grade school, he decided that he was going to become a gag manga artist. He set his sights on this goal, and constantly throughout his school years, he would be drawing. But he decided to keep this fact a secret from everyone, including his friends. This is because he was scared of what they might think of him. But not only did he keep this secret from his friends, he also kept it from his parents. This is because when they would find out that he was drawing in his notebooks, they'd get angry at him. And this really affected One, not because he was getting shouted at all the time by his parents, but because something he loved was being rejected. After years of hiding his work from his friends and his family, there was an urge building up inside of him, an urge to share this work with others. And this eventually led to One discovering webcomics. The first comic he would share was called Sunman, but he never actually finished this because he made the last boss too powerful and couldn't think of a way to defeat him. This is an issue that he was able to circumvent though with his later releases, such as One Punch Man. Speaking of, One Punch Man was the first ever comic that one would actually make on computer. Before this, he would just draw the comics on paper and then use his phone to take a photo, and then he'd upload it to the website. One Punch Man was originally just a way for him to practice using the software Comic Studio. He then released the first chapter online, where it received a positive reception, motivating him to create more chapters. And as he'd released more chapters, more and more comments came in asking him for more chapters. Because of this, he decided to sit down and actually think of what the overall plot would be for the comic. And by chapter 5, the series would gain even larger attention. This is in part thanks to other webcomic creators shouting out the comic on their blogs. Examples of these creators are Kendo creator, PD-san, and Oshan Manabu creator Totsuka-san. This really shows One's writing ability to be able to capture not just a large audience, but also other creators as well. And on Nietzsche, the site where One was uploading these comics, a way to determine if their comics are successful is by looking at the comments. Typically, if a release had 30 comments on the newest upload, that's how you know it was quite successful and popular. But by chapter 30 of One Punch Man, each upload would be getting thousands of comments, and with each new release, the series' popularity would continue growing. And then, on the 10th of February, One announced that One Punch Man would be going on a long-term hiatus. His reason for this hiatus was because of family matters. This resulted in One getting a full-time job, every weeb's worst nightmare. But this job didn't allow One to even have a chance to draw, even on his days off. But at least now he had a stable income and could live quite a normal life. But for One, this was his hell. For his entire life up to this moment, he'd been able to draw every day, but now that form of expression was taken away from him. And it's obvious that this definitely would have affected him mentally, to the point where he'd even have to go out of his way to stop thinking about drawing. He hoped that after a year, he would calm down and would be able to continue living this normal, stable life. But as we all know, that's not what happened, and the urge to drawing was still within him. Because of this, One realised he couldn't give up on his dream yet, and was going to quit his full-time job once again to become a full-time artist. But this time, One had a plan. For the entire year he was working, he lived quite frugally, allowing him to save up as much money as possible. And with this money, he's going to try and live as an artist for a year. And if he failed, he would once again return to his full-time work. And so One took the gamble and returned to One Punch Man. Before he did this, he wrote one tweet: "I'm thinking of quitting my job to become a manga artist, but my peers are stopping me." This tweet was then seen by one very important man. Born in 1978, Miyagi Prefecture, Japan, Yusuke Murata was everything One was not. At the age of 12, he entered a Mega Man competition for designing new villains in the game. Not only did he win this competition, but he did it twice, with 2 characters now in the game being based off his sketches. These 2 characters are Dustman and Crystal Man. And then, at the age of 17 years old, he went on to debut as a professional manga artist in 1995, with his one-shot partner in Shonen Jump. This one-shot would also happen to get him an award. All in all, Murata was a prodigy. He would then go on to publish many more one-shots until 2002, when he was contacted by Richiro Inagaki, asking if he would like to be the illustrator for a series that he's creating by the name of Eyeshield 21. Murata agreed, and by March of that year, the 2 released one-shots of Eyeshield 21 Part 1 and Part 2. And then later the same year, on the 23rd of July, I Shield 21 would officially begin serialization. By the series' end in 2009, it was 333 chapters and had a total of 37 volumes. From 2008 to 2010, Murata would work on the series Hitapi Manga Kenkyujo A monthly, whilst working on more one-shots and drawing the Shonen Jump 40th anniversary poster. It was during this time that Murata would hear about the One Punch Man webcomic. He originally heard of it from the illustrator Akiman, who tweeted One Punch Man is really good. With Murata's interest being piqued, he decided he'd give the series a look, and he instantly became hooked. And after pulling an all-nighter to read the series, Murata had a new ambition: to work with One. But at that current time, Murata was contracted as Shonen Jump, and he thought it'd be a bit fishy if him and One were to work together. Because of this, he put off working with him. But it would only take the fear of death itself for the two to finally come together. Murata became very ill, breaking out with hives. With his inner organs and windpipes infected, it became very hard for him to breathe. And as he was going through all this, he thought to himself that this is how people die. And if he was gonna die, he wanted to do something that he really wanted to do: draw a manga with One. After seeing One's job quitting tweet, Murata decided to immediately contact One, and decided to work with him regardless of his contract as Shonen Jump. The two worked together to create two one-shots: Doto no Yushatachi, releasing on April 1st in Weekly Young Jump, Dangan Tenshi Fan Club, releasing on April 17th in Miracle Jump. Murata then used his industry connections to contact as many publishers as possible for him and One to get a series together, and eventually his editor was able to contact Tonari no Young Jump, the now home of One Punch Man. And on the 14th of June 2012, the One Punch Man manga finally began serialization. It would then go on to become one of the most popular manga of the 2010s, winning numerous awards such as the Sugoi Japan Award, selling 2.2 million copies by November 2013, and now with 30 million copies as of April 2020. And because the series became so popular, it meant that an anime adaptation was imminent. One Punch Man Season 1 was produced under Studio Madhouse, and at the time of its release in 2015, it became one of the most popular anime in the world. But the story of its first season is also the story of the entire anime industry, and it starts with its director, Shingo Natsume. Born on September 26, 1980, Shingo Natsume's career as an animator would begin in 2003, where he worked as an in-between animator on the show Shingetsutan Tsukihime. He would then slowly rise up the ranks as he gained experience, working as a second key animator and then finally key animator, working on well-known shows such as Gurren Lagann and Full Metal Alchemist. During his rise, he would work under the banner of many different studios such as Gainax, Rest in Peace, Bones, Sunrise, Gonzo, and even JC staff, but eventually he would end up on a project at Studio Madhouse. And this is where we begin to see the potential talent that Natsume possessed. On this project, it would be his first ever time in a directorial position, being the episode director for episode 6 of the series Tatami Galaxy. It was on this project that he would really gain his directorial style, working under the wing of the great Masaki Uwasa, someone renowned for his creativity and freedom that he would give to his animators. Natsume made a great time working on this project, inviting a lot of his young animator friends to join him for the episode. This project left an impact on Natsume's directorial style, becoming more prominent as his career furthered. And then not too long after, Natsume would be invited to Studio Bones to work on a little series that goes by the name of Space Dandy. This would be Natsume's directorial debut as a series director, but this wasn't just your average directorial debut, as he'd be co-directing the series with Shinichiro Watanabe of Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo fame, and boy, was it a debut to remember. Space Dandy was an industry-wide project, seeing some of anime's best appear, and with a name as famous as Watanabe's, it's no wonder why the entire industry showed up for this project. This project gave Natsume the chance to get to know the industry's best, while being given the opportunity to work with them and eventually leading to friendships being formed. It also helped that a lot of Natsume's co-workers were part of the same generation as him, which meant that he was able to get along with them easily. And by September 14th, season 2 of Space Dandy had finished airing, and with Natsume's directorial debut over, it was time for him to find his next project. But it didn't seem like that would be a problem for him, as he was approached to be the director of a new adaptation of a popular manga, One Punch Man. The adaptation would take place under the banner of Studio Madhouse, although in the end they were unable to commit a lot of their in-house animators to the project. This meant that the majority of the animation work would be done by freelance animators who were not affiliated with the studio. And this is where Natsume, and Studio Madhouse's largest contribution to the series, animation producer Yuichiro Fukushi, would play key roles in attracting talent. Natsume would be able to use his industry-wide connections to convince some of animation's greatest talents to animate parts of the project, and Fukushi, who during his career as a producer had formed close connections with many animators, such as Toshiyuki Sato and Keisuke Kojima. Not only that, but he would dedicate himself to the art of seduction. He would send a certain animator love calls, and would even bring him to the studio to show how passionately the staff were working, and after seeing the staff's dedication, he decided to help them out on the final episode. This animator would go by the pen name Yataro Takahashi, but you might know him as Yutaka Nakamura.
But why did the series look so good in the first place? Was it because the season had some sort of crazy budget? Well, the budget was crazy. Crazy average, according to Chief Animation Director and Character Designer Chikashi Kubota. And this is because there are many different factors that play a part in the quality of an anime. And the two major factors are time and talent. And it's these two major factors that separate an average looking show from an incredible looking show. Firstly, I'm going to take a look at the director Shingo Natsume, or his philosophy on animation direction really helped elevate the project to the next level. Natsume's philosophy was basically just let the animators do whatever they want. This then made the job of the animators much easier because they didn't have to conform to a style. For example, Ryu Nakayama's Chainsaw Man had a very specific style in mind, commonly known as the Nakayama vision, where it's just really lifelike. And this essentially meant that a large group of animators just weren't able to participate because their style didn't fit Nakayama's vision of lifelike animation. That's because Canada animators are very pose-to-pose, low-key for him, whilst Nakayama was looking for more smooth animation that's more realistic. This philosophy Natsume had was also very similar to his work on Space Dandy, where he also got to work with top-class veterans. And Space Dandy had some of the best sequences in the entire anime industry, and could very well be argued that it's the best looking show that's ever been made, especially TV anime wise. But this creative freedom also really helps the animation directors. It's because the role of the animation director is to make sure that throughout the show all characters look cohesive. But in One Punch Man, that doesn't really matter that much. I mean, there's scenes where, you know, Saitama looks like a smear, whereas you wouldn't really see. For example, a show where animation direction does matter a lot is Bleach, The Thousand Year Blood War. That's because the director wants the art to be really similar to how Tite Kubo's manga looks. Because of that, the characters don't move that much. They'd rather go for a closer representation of the manga characters than to go off model and have them move a lot. So all this resulted in the animation directors just having a lot less work to do, and they let them do the work a lot quicker. Because of this, they also had to contribute a lot of their own cuts to the show. The key animators also would feel a lot more comfortable just animating in their own style instead of having to conform. It let them be a lot more creatively free, and let them be more comfortable, making them work a lot faster. This led to a lot of really interesting and stylized cuts. But this fact is also really helped by Natsume and Fukushi's crazy connections in the anime industry, which essentially let them get the most crazy animators, most talented, the most creative animators in the industry to work on the show. And of course, those animators would love to work on the show because they get to just go wild, basically, which we see the results of. And also because these guys are so talented, their work doesn't even need to be corrected by animation directors because they're able to look at the character design sheets and are able to easily replicate the designs. And then because they had so many veteran animators, it also meant a lot of younger animators were able to also shine as well, because there'd be less pressure on these younger animators to do the heavy lifting. And eventually all this talent just led to this season being full of amazing cuts and different sequences that are so stylized and unique. Natsume's vision eventually led to just the team having a really good environment to work in. Everyone was just happy and able to have fun. In fact, there's an anecdote by people who were working where they were just all laughing whilst working on the funny scenes together. And eventually, by December 15th, 2015, the first season of One Punch Man had come to an end. The team would then work on 6 12-minute long specials and the Road to Hero OVA. And then with them finished, the team that came together for the first season all split up to go and work on their own projects. Natsume would go on to do animation in the industry's next big passion project, Mob Psycho 100. And would then once again team up with producer Fukushi to work on his next show, Aka 13. And the One Punch Man series would lie dormant for a while. until September 25th, 2016, when it was announced that the series would be getting a second season, but then it would almost take 3 years for us to finally see the results.
The second season of One Punch Man released to the sound of disappointment from the fandom. This is thanks to the extreme drop in quality compared to the first season, which led to many fans being left disgruntled and annoyed. Even before the first episode even released, people were already upset with the change in studio, the downgrade in the animation quality, the use of CGI that was shown in the main trailer. But now with that hindsight, the opinion on One Punch Man Season 2 has changed quite a bit. First of all, I think it's best that we look exactly at what happened to One Punch Man Season 2. Why was JC Staff the studio for the second season? What happened to Natsume? And why is it only now that people are beginning to realise that the second season didn't even look that bad? Well, the story of One Punch Man Season 2 is quite a complex one. Although the second season was announced in September 2016, the anime started airing in April 2019, which to those of you who are mathematically inclined is quite a long gap. Not only that, but JC Staff was announced as the animation studio in 2017 to the dismay of the One Punch Man community. That is to say, JC Staff aren't the most well-liked studio, even though they have made quite a few bangers. And this is because they definitely have a philosophy of quantity before quality. Now back to the production. Although the time gap between the two seasons was 4 years, the anime was not produced for all this time. General consensus seems to be that the staff was given a deadline of 6 months to produce a full 12-episode season. I've tried to source of this information to the YouTuber Forgotten Relics video, which I've linked in the description, on the production of One Punch Man Season 2. His source seems to be that he emailed staff, and that was the time frame he received. But I would also like to highlight that Viz Media also released an official announcement for One Punch Man Season 2 on the 12th of August 2018, which is about 8 months before its release. And in this announcement we see a whole lot of nothing from Season 2, only voice lines. This at least shows that 8 months before release they had nothing noteworthy to show, so they probably recently started production. Still, this number isn't much more than 6 months, and considering the average anime episode takes between 2 to 3 months to complete. Obviously this does differ depending on the episode's content, of course. For example, an action heavy episode will most likely take much longer than an episode that's just yapping, thanks to the higher keyframe count. And considering One Punch Man Season 2 is quite action heavy, the show probably should have had at least 2 years in the oven. Not only that, but the season's director, Chikara Sakurai, was working as a chief animation director on the show Lost Song, which finished airing on June 16th. And then factoring the pre-production, this supports the 6 to 8 months being given for production. So the staff were given less than 8 months to complete a 12-episode season of anime, something that is unfortunate but not the most uncommon thing in the anime production landscape. The name Mappa definitely comes to mind with this subject, seeing as a lot of their biggest anime have horrific schedules. But the large difference between Mappa and JC Staff in this situation is that Mappa have some of the biggest IPs in the industry and incredible production staff. This essentially allows them to brute force their way through production, as the most talented and passionate animators in the industry want to work on these shows, although they definitely wish it wasn't another Mappa banner. They also have one of the best current animation producers, Keisuke Seshimo, and they also use the influence of their large IPs to hire freelancers outside of Japan through Twitter, compared to JC Staff, who absolutely do not have the resources or influence to brute force this production. So because of the time they were given, they decided to do as much work as possible in-house. This decision had the effect to ensure that the show's quality didn't completely dive off a cliff, as they knew the capabilities of the staff and their resources they had, which meant that the quality would stay pretty consistent. The only other option would have been outsourcing, which did occur largely for episode 8, which was outsourced to Studio Lan. The problem with outsourcing though is that 1, it's very expensive as you're hiring an entire other studio, and 2, is that you never really know the quality that you're going to receive. And this is because outsourcing studios have the same problems as regular studios, where they take too much work and then have to rush their projects. And also some studios just don't have the talent. These issues aren't also helped by the fact that the outsourcing in the anime industry is seen as the final option, which means that animators in these outsourced studios are given even less time than the main studios. But there is a key problem with the approach JC Staff chose, and this is that a larger burden is placed on their in-house staff, and not only do they have an entire season to animate by themselves, but they also have the pressure of fan expectations from season 1, contributing to creating one very stressful environment. Not only that, but JC Staff is commonly seen as, to put it bluntly, the industry's cum dumpster. What I mean by this is if Mappa didn't take up Attack on Titan, JC Staff would have been the next studio on the list. In 2019, the year of Season 2's release, JC Staff also released 9 different seasons of anime, 2 movies, 5 different specials of varying episode counts, and this is without including OVAs and ONAs. Of course, these shows were made with different staff on different production lines, but also shows that the team was stuck with what they were given. And in the end, we got an anime season that looks a lot better than it should. Anime production is done by a large team of people who work extremely hard to try and achieve the best results that they can possibly create. So to say that one man was able to carry an entire season of anime would be factually incorrect. But if there was one man in the animation industry who were to be the depiction of real life Saitama, Kenichiro Aoki would be that man. To give you an idea of the enigma that is Kenichiro Aoki, he has possibly one of the most insane work rates in the entire industry. On season 2, he was able to animate on episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 and 12. The fights he was able to work on was Bang vs Garo, Garo vs Tank Top Master, Genos vs Garo, and so many more. His output for the entire season was superhuman. To be able to produce so many different sequences of such high quality is astounding. Of course, some of the cuts are quite small and not very long, but this just proves that he's only human, and shows that even the most superhuman animator in the entire industry is unable to beat horrible working conditions. But luckily for Aoki, he also had some help. In season 2, we also saw the appearances of talented animators such as Yen BM, Ryan White, Ryo, Yuji Takagi, Yuki Suzuki, and one was somehow even able to convince Yoshimichi Kamada to once again return to One Punch Man for the final cut of Saitama destroying the Elder Centipede in this season's climax. So if season 2 was quite well animated, why was there such a large amount of hate towards it at the time of its release? Well, obviously, the biggest reason was the downgrade from season 1, but even if the team was given a much better schedule, I doubt they would have been able to create something that's an equal quality to season 1. That's not to discredit the team, it's just that season 1 was just that much of an abnormality in the industry. Even now, in times where producers are actively aiming for full Sakuga shows, it's impossible to match the consistency and quality of One Punch Man season 1 in an industry where deadlines are so tight and resources are stretched so thin that it pays more to work in a convenience store than to be an animator. There are other reasons too, like how inconsistent character designs are to the point where characters look like different people in different scenes. This is once again thanks to the poor schedule, which can be seen by the fact that the season had 3 chief animation directors compared to season 1's 1 chief animation director, being much more standard, and the 27 animation directors compared to season 1's 9. One of the biggest factors that lead to the hate is the bad CGI. Whilst the show did use CGI for characters like the Big Centipede, it was actually implemented extremely well, using techniques like smears, which blends the CGI really well into anime, that most shows don't even use. And the CGI that people hate the most on, that gets mentioned the most, is Genos' arms, which aren't even CGI. It's just that the photography department chose to absolutely go to town with layers on it, giving us this ugly metallic texture. And even this was probably done with good intentions, to hide any flaws in Genos' arms, but it's obvious that they were not given enough time to fully realise their idea. The photography team also abused blurring, probably because some scenes needed it to cover up animation inconsistencies, but it was also used unnecessarily, ruining some cuts. Not only that, but the season was also dimmed and ghosted when it was releasing weekly, making the visuals look even worse. And another common complaint is the sound effects being bad, which is quite surprising as the sound director is Yoshikazu Iwanami, a veteran who's been working in the industry since 1988, working on massive shows like JoJo and Fate. In my opinion, the second season of One Punch Man really encapsulates the greed that is currently within the anime industry, where we're seeing out-of-touch executives just slave-driving production teams to produce more and more shows in worse and worse conditions. Because of this, it's not even uncommon to see animators getting hospitalized, and this is happening now more than ever, in a time where the audience's demand for more and more Sakuga-heavy shows, such as Jujutsu Kaisens, Demon Slayers. The actual supply of animators that are able to deliver on this dwindles and dwindles, especially as more animators become more burnt out. And this all relieves us of the question of, What happens next for One Punch Man? One Punch Man Season 3 was announced on August 18th, 2022, 2 years from the recording of this video. And for a majority of this time, no studio or director was announced. That was until February 2024, where a trailer was revealed showing us that JC Staff would once again be returning to One Punch Man. And I think this is quite interesting as to why they wouldn't announce the animation studio for about a year and a half. Not only that, but there were also rumours that the trailer was pre-animated by Kenichi Aoki. And to those of you who don't know what pre-animated means, essentially it means the scenes that were shown in the trailer were specifically animated for the trailer and not just clips taken from the TV. And this has really worried fans. And this is because an example of pre-animated trailers is Hell's Paradise. If you look at the trailers for Hell's Paradise, the show looks absolutely beautiful, but that trailer is actually pre-animated. And if you actually watch the show itself, you can clearly see that the show experienced production issues, with even the extremely simple character designs not moving at all. I can really think of only 2 reasons for the production company to keep the studio a secret for so long. And the first reason is to not kill any hype for the show. Because after the disappointment of fans to the second season, it's no surprise that if the fandom once again heard that JC Staff would be animating season 3, there would definitely be a large portion of the fan base unhappy with this decision. So they decided to keep the studio hidden until JC Staff actually had something to show. That way to retain the hype and possibly build upon it. And the second more worrying reason is that JC Staff have once again only recently begun production on the season. This would explain why the trailer could be pre-animated and why the studio was hidden for so long, as the production company once again couldn't find another studio to animate One Punch Man, so they've returned to the JC Staff. One thing we could do is look at Kenichi Aoki's current credits on shows he's been on recently to see how much he's been working. The last show that Aoki did key animation on was Eden Zero Season 2, where he appeared consistently throughout the Tuco season, animating all the way up until the final episode, which aired on the 1st of October 2023. He also did some key animation for the Yu-Gi-Oh! PV, which aired on the 3rd of February 2024. Because of this, it's possible that staff have been given at least 6 months of production time so far. So it seems like the 3rd season will be given more production time than its predecessor. But this obviously doesn't mean that the show will have a return to season 1 quality. This is because there are many different factors that are going to eat away at this extra production time that the show has been given so far. For example, in the trailer we are shown monster designs which are incredibly complex and heavily detailed. And the same can be said for Garo in a lot of the shots in the trailer. Because of this, these characters are going to require a lot more time to draw, as they got more lines to draw, obviously. It's also going to make making the characters move quite hard as well. Because of this, I imagine season 3 will be worth getting hype up for animation. Not because it's going to go return to season 1 quality, but because hopefully it should look like a much more polished season 2. And we can already see this from official visuals that have been released. We see a Genos PV, where he doesn't have the ugly texture on his arms anymore. Instead he's gone for a much cleaner look, thank God. One worrying thing though is the director of the 3rd season is yet to be revealed. And some fans have thought that this must be because Natsume is returning and they want to hype up. But I'm sure if Natsume was returning, they'd probably have announced it already, because it would just get them so much more hype. I imagine what's actually happening is they have the director ready, but they don't reveal it to make sure they don't get absolutely threatened, like what happened with season 2. Not only that, but I'm sure JC Staff would much prefer having an in-house director rather than having a freelance director like Natsume just show up and do Natsume things. The only thing supporting this theory is that Natsume hasn't really worked on anything since 2022, but that would be much before the show was ready for production. But so far that's really all we know about the 3rd season of One Punch Man. Currently we're just in a waiting game to find out more information. But in the background of all this, something has been brewing. On April 21st, 2020, Sony's Columbia Pictures announced that a live-action One Punch Man adaptation was in development. The announcement detailed that the adaptation will be a film and that the writers Scott Rosenberg and Jeff Pinker had been signed on and that Avi Arad would produce the film. On the 13th of June 2022, it was revealed Justin Lin would be the film's director and co-producer. Not only that, but the film would be going into production later that year. And then not long after, the film released to critical praise, winning numerous awards at the Oscars, cementing itself as a modern classic. And that this is exactly how an anime adaptation should be made. And none of that happened. Everything went dead silent until April 2024, when it was announced that Dan Harmon and Heather Ann Campbell were reportedly hired to rewrite the script. So it seems that the production is going about as well as expected. It's pretty interesting that I didn't even hear about this until I started researching for this video, and I think this itself just says a lot about live action anime adaptation. They're not really something that you get hyped for anymore. I don't see the potential in a live action One Punch Man. Like, apart from making Sony a bunch of money, what is the purpose of this live action? As in, what will it do that the anime and manga can't? Like, if you look at the strengths of live action, which is using the actors, I can't really look at the strengths of actual actors and CGI that will elevate the series. And that's the story of One Punch Man. It's a story of many highs and lows, with an aspiring mangaka with art that's underdeveloped, to creating one of the most popular manga of all time, resulting in an anime adaptation that's one of the best animated anime of all time, to season 2, which was seen as one of the worst anime of all time, even though it was actually pretty good animated. And then a live action film!